Hello everyone, this is a streamlined tutorial to set up the DWS server Windows deployment services, including the client. I've already just gotten started to be able to make a new virtual box. I'm going to make it right now. Notice the settings that I have. I'm going to call mine Windows 2008 server Microsoft. You notice this is Windows 2008 64-bit. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add this to be 1024 megs of RAM. Create the hard disk, defaults through it, leave it as dynamic. I'm going to add it as 120 gig. Click next on it, create, and create. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on it, go to settings, and then I'm going to go to network interface, change it over to bridged adapter for the first one. Go to my second adapter, and I'm going to select that so I can have two network cards in there. And I'm not going to make it bridged, I'm going to make it internal. So my first one is bridged and my second one is internal. Okay, and then I want to go to storage, highlight the CD-ROM, click on the CD tray, and I want to find, on my desktop I've actually loaded the Windows ISO, and it is right here. This is the version. I've saved it right here on my desktop. So this is the ISO to install server. So I'm going to highlight that, click OK. Everything is good. I'm going to go ahead and add my clone or my image machine that I'm going to send an image to from the server once it's configured. Go ahead and click next on that, and I'm going to call this one my clone. Whoops. Windows 2007. Okay, make sure that actually the way that I'm going to install this, I'm going to do another server is what I'm going to do on it anyway. So I'm going to set that up. So that's the image I'm going to pull over on it. It's this particular one. I can add another Windows 2007, but for right now, just to make this easy, I'm going to make it as a secondary server, what it's going to image over. So I'm going to click next on that. Let's add that is 1024 again. Click next on it. Next again. Next. Leave it as that size. I'm going to leave it as a 20 gig drive is fine. Create and create. I'm going to go ahead and right click on that, go to settings, and what I want to do is I want to go to the network card. I want to change it to internal network. Okay, and the way I'm going to set this one up when it fires up is I'm going to go to system, change it over to network, and then bump the network card to boot from the desktop. Okay, so let's go ahead and double click on the first one that I created here. And you guys can see that it's installing here. And I'm going to go through the setup, install now. And I want to do the full installation enterprise. Click next. Accept the license agreement. Do custom. Click next because I'm going to leave it as the 120 gig. And we're going to go ahead and install it. Alright, it looks like everything's installed here. Let me go ahead and put the password in. Alright, looks like everything's loaded up here. It's got it all saved up. I'm going to go ahead and use this tutorial, this server for also doing routing. So I'm going to go ahead and take a snapshot of this right now. Okay, it's a nice little way to make a backup. So just in case I need it, I can bring the server back to a point where it's workable. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do about 3 different things here. So I'm going to go ahead and change the server name. Let's go to change system settings, and I'm going to call this Win Server 1. Click OK on that. It's going to tell me I have to restart, but I'm not going to choose to restart right now. I'm going to restart later, and I'm going to go ahead and assign my network cards. IP addresses on. So first I need to find out what my internal IP address is. Alright, and then I'm going to find out what my internal IP address is. It's 192.168.1.12, and my default gateway, my default gateway is 1.1. So let's go ahead and set that up. Okay, I'm going to turn off IPv6, highlight IPv4. I believe it was 12 if I'm not mistaken. Yes, it is. And my default gateway was 192.168.1.1. And I need to put the server's IP address in this one to make it set up correctly, which is .12. And then my default gateway, just to make sure I get an internet connection when I'm done here. .1 is a default pathway to it. Alright, let's OK that one. Let's go to the second network card. I'm going to make that one a different IP and internal IP altogether. Kind of the way we've done it in the lab. So you guys can see some familiarity with this. 100, I'm going to call that one .10, just like on the lab server is currently. So now I've got all my static IP addresses set up. As I notice, give it a second here. Look, this is my internet connection side. This is my Dhcp internal network side. So one last thing as well. I'm going to come down here and I want to configure the ICS and turn that off. Then I want to go to Windows Firewall. And Windows Firewall is starting up. Okay, let's open up the Windows Firewall. Properties, anyways. Okay, I want to turn off all the firewall services. Okay. Go ahead and get on the internet just to make sure everything is working still. I don't need to set that up for right now. I'm just going to go to Google, make sure I can get on the net. You guys notice that I got on there, no problem. Down here, Internet Options, I'm going to set that as my default. So every time I open up Internet Explorer, everything's going to work. Shortcut here on the desktop. Now I can see that, which is good. All right, let's go ahead and start. Oh, sorry, I need to restart because I changed the computer name. So let's go ahead and restart it. And it looks like it's done. Okay, let's go ahead and run the DHCP promo, set up the Active Directory services, create a new domain, give this one cstlab.prv, make it private. Next, just going through the services and installing them. This is about actual time, how long it should take to install this. And make sure that you select 2008 R2. Click Next. And yes, I want to install the DNS service. Yes, I do. Click Next again. Give it the password. I'm just giving it the same one I gave the administrator account. Click Next. I'm going to go ahead and check this box where it says Reboot after start, because you must restart after the Active Directory service is installed. Alright, looks like the Active Directory is installed. Let's go through that. Just about, looks like it's loaded up. Finishing configuring the network card there. I assume it's going to get ready to start up Server Manager. Alright, let's fire up Server Manager and find out what roles we have in here now. Everything looks good. Looks like it's turned the domain into cstlab.prv. Let's go ahead and add, now Active Directory and DNS is installed. Let's go ahead and add Dhcp. So click next on it, bring in the Dhcp server. Next, next. And I don't want the Dhcp server to work on the other network card that's connected to the internet. I want it to connect just to the internal IP address here, which I'm going to leave that checked. Click next again, next, and let's go ahead and add a scope for it to work. So I'm going to call it test. Oops. And my starting IP address will be 10.0.100.11 and 10.0.100, and let's just put it as 21, which will work fine. Click next on it. Disable IPv6. Click next and install. And it should only take a few seconds to install that. It's a pretty quick little service. And it's done. So now we have Active Directory, DHCP server, and DNS server. Let's go ahead and install the Dws server. Next, and let's highlight it right here, Windows Deployment Services. Click next, next again, leaving all the defaults, install that one. Oh, you know it's going to have an error on here, you know why? Because I don't have that drive installed. So once I go to configure it, you notice that when you click on it, you open it up here, whoops, you notice that it has this little yellow triangle here on it. So what we need to do, let's go ahead and go to storage, and we remember I made a 120 gig drive. I'm going to go to storage and then disk management. I'm going to highlight the drive here, which is 120 gig. I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to shrink the volume. Wait for that to come up. Alright, and I'm going to type in 80,000 for an 80 gig drive. Leaves me about 42 megs for the server itself, which is fine. Shrink it. And it looks like it's shrunk. Right click on it, new sample volume. Next, next. All the stuff we've done before. Converted it into a drive, which is good. This will be ready. This is where the deployment service is going to store its images. Alright, now that we've got the disk management, let's go back to the deployment services. Let's right click on it and say configure server. Click next on it And we want to change that remote install directory from drive C over to drive E, which is our new hard drive. Click Next. Click Next again. And I want it to respond to all clients and known computers. Click Next again. Excuse me. Yeah, it looks like it's done. And then the last thing I want to do is I want to install the image that I installed the server with, so I have a deployment image. And that means I'm going to go ahead and just click OK on this. So that's going to be computer and the CD-ROM that I already mounted to the virtual box. And then click Next. And I can just name this one Win2008 Server. Click Next. Next, and then now it's installing its image. Alright, it looks like it's done installing the image, which is good for us. Looks like the deployment server fired up without a problem. And so since everything looks like it's all working, which is, notice the green light that's on here. Dhcp looks like it's activated as well. Let's take a look at it. Yep, all the IPv, the scope, everything's green, which is good. I like that. That's a good sign. So I'm going to go ahead and let's try to install our image here. So this is the one I created before, just making sure my properties are set right. I did set it to boot to the network. Network card is an internal network, which I want. So once I click on this, it should come up. It's asking me for a host. I'm not going to install anything on the host, but I want it to boot to the network card, and I'm going to hit F12 when it comes up. It looks like it's going to grab an IP address. Looks like it did. F12. I'm loading my image now from the server that I set up. And you guys can see the image coming over right now. Same way it worked inside the lab. Excuse me. It's loading the boot image up over the network, which is good. And it looks like it's going to ask me about my image to install it, which is a good thing here. Let's click Next on it. and I'm going to give this one CST lab / administrator. Okay, my password. Whoops. Pressed another button on there. I'm going to delete that. Okay, if everything worked good and it logged in, look, it did. It let me log right into the over the network. I just want to install the core version here so you guys can see that it does work. Highlight it. Click next. Remember, this is my 20 gig drive. And it looks like it's installing just fine. It's loading over from the server itself, loading it from the internal network connection from inside of VirtualBox. If you guys notice, if I drag this down here, you'll see here's my server set up in the background. Everything's running from it. So right now it's deploying the services that we were talking about. Everything's coming over just fine. You guys can see that working in the background. Let me click on it here, and you can see that Windows Server is installing. And look at the accelerated rate that it does install with that image, which is quite fast. Alright guys, so you know the end result to this, so you can see that it is working, and that's how to do a quick speed run. I'm setting it up. Thank you guys for joining me. Have a good day.